Welcome back. I'm Coach Michael Burt to another episode of America's Coach. Every week, we like to bring you podcasts here from the Greatness Factory, the Level 10 studio at the Greatness Factory, really around the concept of pray drive, person of interest, person of expansion, get you into the coach's locker room some. And we like to interview fascinating people. When I wrote the book, Person of Interest, people of interest are fascinating people. They're hanging around other fascinating people. They're doing fascinating things. And today we have a true person of interest and a true person of expansion. Became one of the top sales reps at a company that you guys would all know, became the CEO of the company, one of the youngest CEOs in the country, and really grew that company significantly. Has had a lot of interesting experiences, built very hard skill sets, and now is into the venture coaching game, the investment game. So today we have Mr. Dustin Hillis. Dustin, welcome to
Thank,
America's Coach.
thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So we got a lot of things to talk about today, sir. We met many years ago. We were close to doing a deal with each other. I think we both kind of got to the point. It's like, hey, we know what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like I always say, skill recognizes skill.
Yeah.
And
I'd
I
say
gravitate
immediately it was like, brother,
yeah. It's like, hey, I know you.
Yeah.
Well, you've done a lot of fascinating things in your life, and you're a young guy. I mean, you've done a lot. You got a book coming out on capacity. We'll get to all things new ventures, some of the investments that you're making. But I want to go back to your past, because if I said to you today, what is your primary skill, and what skill does that problem solve? What would you tell me?
Hmm. Good question. I've learned this through other people,
Yep.
and other people have told me, this is what is different. And these are folks that have worked with me for 15, 20 years,
Yep.
is they say that it's belief.
Oh,
It
interesting.
it's my beliefs. I help other people form their beliefs of what they can do and what's possible.
Yeah.
And that might be a thing that God gave me as a gift
Yes.
that I would say, I don't know where I really learned it, but it
Right.
just kind of happened. And then I've honed it. I've learned a lot of skills that kind of bolt onto that.
Yes.
And I'd say if there was one thing, it would be belief.
Yeah.
And my faith is huge. I
Yeah.
became a Christian when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
And so faith and belief, I think, are two different things,
Right.
but when put together, it's powerful.
Well, I think when you look at people of interest, the first thing most of them have is what I call a hard skill, right? And
Mhm.
would you say that ability to build that in people was one of the things that made you a great salesperson? I guess in layman's terms, because when I talk to people about you, they said, "Man, that dude was one of the best sales people that's ever came out of their organization," right? If not the best. So is that do you tie those two things together? And I guess if you were going back to your past, where did that initiate? Was it
Yeah. Uh, so that's kind of a two-part question with a two-part answer. So I'll start with where I think I might have got it from, and then I'll go into what did I tap into to create that pray drive to
Mhm.
motivate me.
Mhm.
I'd say it starts with my dad, my
Yep.
father, Steve Hillis. He's an entrepreneur. Started a flooring business with his brother,
Yep.
Uncle Scott,
Yep.
and they named the company Hillis Metro Flooring. And when they became partners, it was in Texas. I was born in Texas. And about 6 years old, dad and Uncle Scott decided to move the company to Nashville, Tennessee. So he was looking for a place to put his office. So literally just opens up the newspaper, sees a ad at the Southwestern Company, and decides, hey, I'm going to go, lease some space at Landers Plaza, which is
Yep.
where I ended up working for 20
Wow.
years. So go forward a little bit. He outsells his capacity to deliver his purchase orders.
Okay.
This is back when interest rates were 17%.
Yep.
So he found Spencer Hayes, who was literally walking through the halls of Southwestern, and he was the majority shareholder at the time, and said, hey, I have a problem. Would you help me with here's the purchase order. I need money to fulfill it. So Spencer said, sure. And for many years, half of his company was owned by Southwestern.
Wow.
during that time, he would see these kids running around in the parking lot, and I think you've seen here in
Yeah.
Nashville the training program. So it's the oldest direct sales company in the country, founded in 1855. Actually started off selling Bibles door to door.
Wow.
Which I really was attracted to, thinking, wow, that's a pretty cool roots of Southwestern
Right.
was Bibles and getting that out there. But he then hired two people. One guy was named Mark Savis, who's one of my best friends still to today, and another guy named Dave Trepke. And he was actually apprehensive to hire these young people straight out of college because he thought you needed industry experience. And you don't understand the flooring industry and hospitality. You got to have relationships. You have to know what you're doing. So he totally thought they were going to fail. And he had, like, I don't know, 30 salespeople at the time.
Okay.
And literally their first year, they were number one and number two in the whole company. So he said, okay, there might be something to this training program. and
Yes.
and they outsold all of his seasoned vets. Fast forward to today,
Yep.
Dave Trepke now owns the company
Wow.
and still is running it out of California.
Wow.
And Mark has been wildly successful. Mark sold his company for almost 9 figures with a couple
Okay.
of partners, had 2 bites at the apple, the whole thing. And those were his two first salespeople
Wow.
out of that program. So I ended up playing football, got hurt, and he said, hey, I think you ought to go sell with Southwestern. And I was like, Dad, that's not for me. You're the sales guy. Sports, I'm going to do. I thought about being like a sports agent or something.
Okay.
And he goes, no, I think you should go check out the Southwestern thing.
Good for him.
And I was like, man, I don't know. And he goes, well, you want that car, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, how are you going to pay for that car?
Yeah.
And I said, I thought you were going to pay for it. And he said, I'll tell you what.
Sounds like my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Mine too.
I like to tell my daughter kind of what Shaq tells his kids. I tell him, I tell her, I'm like, I'm rich, but you're not.
Yeah.
That's what Shaq told all his
Yeah,
kids. I'm rich, but you're not rich.
That's
So,
funny.
so
then I got into selling with Southwestern from there. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of my original core. Like,
Yeah.
really, it was just to get a car. He was going to pay half. I was going to pay half. But then that only went so far. So to answer the second part of your question is, after I finished number one my first year. So that's number one out of 2,500 salespeople.
Yep.
I made $36,000 in 10 weeks, my second year in college.
Yeah.
And that was fun. But then it was really after breaking the company record, my third year, I made $100,000 in 14 weeks as a junior in college. And that's when I went to Dave Ramsey and was on his radio show. I was the first person he interviewed on his radio show.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty neat as a junior in college. And I'm still friends with Dave Ramsey
Interesting.
today because of that. But to come full circle to where I found what I feel was my God purpose. Like I actually had a moment where God spoke to me, and I was kind of in this deconstruction, frustrated with life moment. And it was actually on the book field my second year. And I just thought, what's the purpose of all this? This is kind of ridiculous. And I heard an audible voice, which was help people.
Mm.
And I actually got pissed
Yep.
because I wanted more. I
Yeah.
wanted it to be something grander in my mind at the
Right.
time. And I could go back and show you a tape of my life from that moment before that. And I probably didn't make one decision to help other people before that.
Wow.
It was all about what's in it for me.
Yep.
The reason I sold books originally was to make money.
Mhm.
And I hadn't even thought of that until this actual audible voice that was in my head saying, help people.
Yep.
Then the next year, after breaking the company record, a guy named Theo from Singapore asked me to coach him.
Okay.
And he said, hey, you broke the company record. I want to learn how to break the company record. And I thought, this is cool. Yeah. And so I created 6 modules, and it was my first coaching client.
Okay.
And I put him through these 6 modules. I coached him every other week. And he ended up breaking my wife. So my wife was the company record holder.
Okay.
So I broke her record. Then he broke her record and sold just a little bit less than me.
Okay.
And that's how I got into coaching. That's where I found out my passion in life is helping people. And really, it's helping them increase their beliefs, increase their ability to reach their God-given potential.
Yeah.
So that's a really long answer, but those are my two,
Well,
where it came from and what I think
Yeah.
kind of caused it.
Well, I think, I always say we're paying you for your past, right? Your past helps me to build my future.
Yeah.
And when you ask a lot of people what their primary skills are, what I find is that they can't tell you, right?
Mm.
So you saying, this is really a core skill that I have. Now, I always go like, where did that skill come from, right? Was it, I believe we're hardwired with birthday gifts, right, from God when we're born, but
Yep.
those gifts are latent and undeveloped until we find them. We refine those gifts. We use them. I call it working the muscle.
That's right.
And you went out and worked the muscle. And then it's like, okay, this is
Yeah.
what your skill set is.
Yeah. You want to hear some interesting
Yeah.
numbers? My first year, I worked 85 hours a week,
Okay.
6 days a week for 10 weeks was my first summer. I would do a presentation to 30 people a day. My first year, I'd get in about 15 doors a day,
Okay.
and I'd close about 8 or 9 on a good day, 10 of them. And that's how I did that. And then when I broke the company record and sold 20,000 units, it was still 85 hours a week. I was getting in about 20 doors a day, and I had a 50% closing ratio. So I was having 10 customers a day for 14 weeks, and that was how I made 100,000. So if you add up over 4 years, it was about 10,000 doors that I knocked on.
Wow. So it's interesting. We were having this discussion in our team meeting this morning. We got this young kid out of Boston who's a setter and really smart guy, very analytical. And I actually believe people that are too analytical, it can hurt them.
Yeah,
right.
Analysis paralysis.
That's right. So we were going through this concept of good leads, bad leads. What can we do to drive better leads in the door? And I'm listening, and I'm going, well, you could study the law of diffusion. Law of diffusion says when you present an idea to another person, right, 2.5% of people take it the first time. Then there's 13.5% of people need to see it 1 to 3 times. Then 34%, 3 to 7 times, 34%. But don't you agree? And maybe you don't, because it sounds like to me that skill really played a factor here. Because there's probably somebody else that knocked on 10,000 doors that didn't get the same results you did.
I'd say it's a combination.
Okay.
So going back to that first year, I think I learned more in that first year than I did in the next 10 years combined.
Yep.
Because it was such a microcosm. And I think at some point in your life, you have to redline.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, like pushing your car to the limit to really see how fast the car can go. So the red line to your car. And there was an organization by one of the best leaders that I've worked with. His name's Nate Vogel, and he named his organization Redline for that very reason. So my first year, I truly learned how to redline, which meant what am I capable of? And I played football, I did sports, and I could say I pushed myself in sports in certain games, but I never had 10 weeks of literally working as hard as I possibly could work and leaving it on the field every single moment, every single day, every single second. And that first year, I can honestly say, I don't think I could have worked harder. And I didn't even know what that felt like.
Right.
So I think there's an element where most people go their whole lives without ever redlining because they're afraid. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of success, or the fear of failure. And all of those reasons is why someone wouldn't really want to see what they're capable of. Yeah. Within that, I think in addition to there's certain skills that need to be developed. People have certain natural things like some people are natural at rapport. Some people are natural at being inquisitive and asking questions. Some people are really natural at listening. Some people are natural at closing. And I think you have to have all those to really be successful at any kind of business.
Right.
But for me, what came naturally was actually asking for referrals. I guess just because I never was really that good at anything, it never was beyond me to ask for help. And it's interesting. I created this is back when we actually had CDs. I had a referral, how to ask for referral CD set. And it occurred to me I was the only person doing that.
Yep.
So out of the 2,000, it was almost 3,000 salespeople back then. No one was really teaching how to work referrals. No one was doing it. And that was one of those things that I'd say my very first day, I just went out there and thought it's much easier for me to ask you, hey, who do you know who has kids and what time are they home? And who's your best friend? Who do you go to church with? And I just started networking, door to door, cold calling,
Right.
but on paper asking where do they live, what time are they home, who's your best friends, and I just started doing that. So that would be like a skill, a
Yeah.
hard skill that I would say
Right.
it came natural to me. I learned in sales school my first year. I accidentally overheard experienced people saying, "Hey, out of everything in the sales talk, the most important part is the close."
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about the sales talk when I first showed up in Nashville.
Mm.
I was like a party animal. I actually partied the night before going to sales school and didn't even go to sleep. So it was like the worst example I could have
Yep.
done.
Yep.
But and they thought I was going to fail. They tried to get me to stay at sales school because I was so bad at the sales talk.
Wow.
But I heard somebody in the parking lot say the close is the most important part.
Yep.
So I actually memorized the close before I knew the presentation.
Okay.
So I would go door to door and I would just kind of read their body language. And as soon as they go, "Oh, this has math. Oh, that's interesting," I would immediately go into the close and people buy it.
Wow.
And so I'd say those are my two day one hard skills. Was I started working referrals.
Yep.
And I started with the close versus the presentation. Going back to the analysis paralysis, I think
Yeah.
people present way too much
Yeah.
and they never close, and then people don't buy.
Yeah, we call that conversing versus conversion.
That's
A lot of
right.
people have conversations, but they don't have conversion.
That's right.
And really, I study words a lot. To me, the word close, if you just look at the definition, means to bring something to an end.
That's right.
Means to bring two things together.
Point A to point B.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
really bringing their desire with your solution, and you're bringing these two things together. But I like this concept because I'm a concept junkie.
Yeah.
I'm like a songwriter, so I'm like red line. I like that because I've never heard somebody say it like that.
Yeah.
The truth is, how to push to a limit. What you learn there, looking back, is you learn how to push something to a limit.
That's right.
And so now you got your skill, your natural gifts and skills, your hard skill of getting another person to believe something, right?
Yep.
Now you've got this new skill, which is how to push something to a limit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote down the referral conversation is, gosh, I mean, I like to say each deal should be worth 5.7 deals.
That's right.
But nobody asks and nobody works. They're like, I need new people. Like, I got to go find new people. And a lot of it is in your network.
That's
We
right.
call that the top 25. But where did you develop? I feel like somewhere along the way you developed, this is more of an attribute of the habits of the top performers, remarkable boldness. Because I feel like you don't have a fear of asking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen you in sales situations. You don't have a fear of just coming out and asking, right? Whether that be for an investment,
Mhm.
whether that be to take an action. And a lot of people struggle there. So was that learned? Did you watch somebody else do it? Because I torn around this concept of remarkable boldness. Could I teach another person how to be remarkably bold?
So two answers to that one as well. The first one is I'd have to go with faith. Is I just feel, if you have faith that you're doing the right thing, you're saying the right thing, your heart's in the right place and you're truly helping people, then you should have no fear of asking to do something that's right, to help somebody with something that's right, to help somebody that might be stuck in their own way to get past that.
Right.
And so if I'm operating and my heart's in the right place and my faith's in the right place, then I can be as bold. You can say anything with love. Second part of that is, I think knowing what's possible is a different element to that. Most people go their whole life and they've never even asked themselves the question, what is possible for me?
Wow.
What's possible in my life?
Mm-hmm.
What's possible in my career? What's possible in my impact in the world? And again, why would you not? Fear.
Yep.
It's all the fear of the unknown, fear of success, fear of failure. So for me, I actually had somebody speak this over me. It was my second summer, my last day, a guy that had sold for 10 years. And this is my second year. And he said, "Hey, I want to shadow you today." And he was my manager. His name's Keith Kimball, a great guy. So he comes and shadows me, and it's a wild, crazy day, fun stories. And by the end of the day, I sold like 300 units and It was a pretty good day to me, at least. And I said, "What'd you get out of today?" And this was a guy that had been there for 10 years, seasoned guy, my manager. And he just shook his head and he goes, "You today sold more in a single day than I have ever sold in my 10 years of doing this job." And he said, "Number two, you have no idea what you're doing."
I love it.
And I was like, "Thanks," you
Yeah.
know, and he laughed and he said, "If you take this serious and you really learn," well, he said, "If you learn what's in the books
Right.
and you really hone all the different parts of the cycle of the cell,"
Right.
he said, "you'll break the company record."
Yep.
And it was just this seed planted in my head. And I hadn't even thought about breaking the company record until he said that. And I just thought, that'd be cool.
It,
And then I started working on how would that be possible.
isn't that amazing how one person can speak? You know, something I'm doing that I learned from Milet, because I spoke with Milet at 10X, is he has this concept called "Let me tell you about you."
Mm,
And I say to my son, 4 years old, before he goes to bed, I said, "Let me tell you about you.
mm,
You're the best son I could ever have."
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And you're going to do big things in the world. Let me tell you about you. And that's really what that guy was doing for you.
yeah.
Let me tell you about you.
Well, and I know you're a big fan of
Yeah.
quantum
Yeah.
dynamics, quantum
That's right.
physics. That's speaking into the quantum.
Yes.
And you know, the person that's the OG at that is
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that's all quantum
Right.
physics, but people,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
we
right.
now have a term for it.
That's right.
And so when you're speaking truth over somebody, that is
Yeah.
quantum dynamics.
Well, it's interesting because I said to my daughter once, "You got a great arm." We're out throwing softball one day, and
Mhm.
she said, I need to play softball. So she plays softball. She's scared to death to bat. She said, "You didn't tell me I was going to have to bat." She said, "You just told me I had a great arm." And I went, and she wasn't a very good softball player, but she took that one compliment
Yeah,
and said, "I need to play softball
yeah,
because Dad said I had a great arm." And I think what that guy was doing for you was saying, "Man, you got the natural talent.
yep,
If you just did the work, right, do the deep work,
yep.
you're going to become great." And at some point, did you move on natural talent for so long? Or did you get serious about the
Yeah,
other side
you
of it?
know,
It's
I
like something
became
flipped the switch in you.
it. That was it. It was just I couldn't stop thinking about what he said,
Okay.
and I think I was at that point in my life where I wanted a challenge. Like it wasn't that I wanted to prove to myself I could do something noteworthy. So my first
Yeah.
year, I did.
Yeah.
Then my second year, I built a team and I helped my team. That was my first leadership. I had 8 people on my team. So that was like, that was way harder
Yeah.
than finishing number one as a salesperson was the team aspect
Mhm.
for me. And then the third year, it was just like, I just want to see what's possible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to really give it everything I got.
Yeah.
So what I did was I took the sales talk, and this is a 150-year-old sales talk that
Okay.
has had some of the greatest minds. Some of the people that have
Right.
sold before me
Right.
that are now, billionaires and
Yep.
running industries
Right.
and doing interesting things. Um, and I just said, if I took every advanced sales talk that I've ever heard, and I had literally this big of notebooks full of handwritten notes from all the seminars I'd gone through, all the books I'd written. I just became a junkie around psychology, sales books, if you remember Jeffrey Gitomer, the red book
Yeah.
of sales, like I had all that, the Tony Robbins stuff.
Yep.
And this was back when I was 19, 20 years old. And I just started, it was when the audiobooks became big.
Yep.
And I could listen to them at double speed and retain about 90% of what I heard. And I would take notes. So I'd listen to them, in my room at college and write down anything that I thought could translate to selling. And I thought, what would be cool? Take all of these notes and rewrite the sales talk, but insert the idea into when I would say it when I'm out in the field selling.
Okay.
And I might have invented that. I never heard of another person doing that.
Okay.
And so I'd sit in the back of the room during our interviews and I would rewrite the sales talk by
Okay.
hand.
Okay.
And it took me probably 6 months to really integrate it properly. I rewrote it about 3 times to really get it right.
Okay.
And by the end of it, what I found was I actually was stripping out unnecessary words
Yeah.
and inserting just brilliant questions that I learned from somebody else.
Right.
Choice questions, different third-party testimonial stories that
Right.
could be shaped in different ways. And it just ended up being like really, really good. And I got excited about it. And then by the time the summer rolled around, I just thought, man, I had 30 people. I did 30 demos before that summer started. And by the time I got to my last 5 demos with seasoned people that have been selling for a very long time, they said, I have to say yes. Like, I can't think of an objection to get you other than I don't have the money. The only reason someone didn't buy from me that year was truly they didn't have the money. And that's the level of skill that I think it got to, and it is possible, and I think that's transferable. So I think that's where other people can learn how to do that,
Mhm.
and that's what I started teaching people how to do. Was if you really have a big goal,
Mhm.
you can dissect your process down so well that you're answering the objections before they come up. You know how to do if-then scenarios,
Right.
and you really can have that closing ratio be world class.
Well, I want to extract something here for the listener because I didn't finish my thought on conversion.
Okay.
Because conversion means to take, I always say, take an interest and convert it to an action.
Yeah.
But a conversion question would be, could you see yourself doing this? Like when I show the Greatness Factory, I go, could you see yourself using a theater?
Yeah.
Could you see yourself having a podcast in there? Is this something you think you'd like to do? Is this something you'd be interested in? And so I'm fascinated by this, what we call the explanation of value when you were out there, right? Because
Yep.
how many salespeople never get down a great explanation of value?
Oh, most.
And so they wing it,
A
right?
vast
And
majority.
you
Yeah.
kind of converted it to a science.
That's right.
You dissected it, you
Mhm.
deconstructed it, you added questions to it, you went out and did it, and you converted, and this made you a great sales rep that had this tool belt.
I think a part of that is also looking outside the walls of what I was
Yep.
just hearing within the walls, reading books, listening, going to seminars,
Yep.
just not having a limit in my mind of where I can learn. I just kind of went, I can learn from anybody, anywhere, anything, anyhow,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
And then just going, and I can integrate that.
Yeah.
And
Well, that retention system is something most people are myopic in what they do, right?
Mhm.
They kind of stay in their lane, but being able to go outside of that, pull things in,
Mhm.
I think is a skill. Now let's fast forward to your selling, you're progressing, you're coaching, right? At
Yep.
what point did Southwestern come to you and say, "We want you to be our CEO"? How did that work?
Okay. So after coaching my first coaching client, I just got the bug. And I directly connected it in my mind to when God told me help people.
Okay.
And then the feedback I got from
Okay.
him saying, thank you. Man, that changed my life. This was huge. I thought I got way more satisfaction out of coaching someone to break the record than personally breaking the record.
Okay.
And I just said, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Nice.
And so I created a business plan. And originally, I was just going to do it on my own. Actually, with my wife,
Okay.
that's when we were dating.
Okay.
We both kind of had the same passion. And Southwestern found out about it and said, "Hey, we've always wanted a coaching business. Why don't you do it with us?"
Interesting.
And at the time, I was getting advice from Dave Ramsey, and
Okay.
he kind of looked at it and said, "You could do this on your own, and it would be successful. It would just happen faster if you had the resources backing you of a big company."
Right.
And so I thought, okay, cool, I'll do it. So did the partnership, and we did $1 million in our first year. It was
Nice.
actually a seminar business,
Okay.
which you are very familiar with.
I am.
So we would go and we were road warriors. So our first event was in San Francisco.
Okay.
I recruited 3 salespeople.
Right.
One of them I went to high school with, and another one was a guy at Southwestern, and
Okay.
and my wife. And,
Wow.
and we hit the road. And there was another co-founder that lived in San Jose, California,
Okay.
that I got introduced to through Southwestern, and
Okay.
that was my co-founder.
Okay.
And we
Nice.
literally took a phone book and physically took the pages of a phone book and said, "Here's your list, here's your list, and here's your list." We hired a consultant, and he gave us a VCH tape of Jim Rohn workshops,
Yeah.
which is what Tony Robbins learned from, by the way. Tony Robbins was a workshop guy, seminar business, but we had a black and white VHS, and we sat down on the floor of our Oakwood Suites in San Jose, California, and wrote the first script of the workshop, reverse engineering the Jim Rohn script, and put our own twist to it, and then called out of the phone book to people with sales teams. And our first entry price was $300 a ticket. And our consultant said, "Are you sure you want to start at 300? That's competing with Brian Tracy and the big dogs at the time." And we said, "Yep, we're coming out of the gates hot. We're going to do $300 a ticket." And he said, "Well, if you sell 200 tickets by your second year and you're putting 300 people in a room at $300 a pop, then congratulations, you're now competing with the big dogs." Our very first event, we sold 700 tickets. It was like 12 weeks. And then our second event in San Francisco at the convention center, we sold, I think it was 900 tickets at $300 a pop. And that was in, 12 weeks. And then our third event was here in Nashville, and we sold over 1,000 tickets, and we did over $1 million our first year. And that's how we started the company.
And that is a skill.
It was a skill.
And fast forward to today, people would pay good money to just selling 100 tickets today is not easy.
That's right.
It's not as easy as people think.
That's right.
So, all right. So you start the coaching business.
Well, so that was seminar. Then what we found is people at the end of the seminar would say, "What's next?"
Yep.
And we'd be like, "Oh, come to the next seminar."
Okay.
And quickly we found out coaching was what they're asking for. And this was back in 2005, 2006, when people didn't even know what a business coach was. The health coaching started to take off.
Yeah.
And so we worked with a couple of other coaching programs, and then found out we need to do this on our own.
Okay.
So I was a newlywed, and it was really hard being on the road, newly married. So I volunteered to come back to Nashville and create a coaching curriculum, learn how to sell it. So I spent 2 years being the guinea pig, if you will.
Okay.
That was 2008, 2009. Then 2010, started to figure it out through a workshop model, which is the same model that Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all those guys had, selling tickets, but we learned you could sell coaching the same way.
Okay.
So started doing that, hired our first salesperson, and she ended up selling 36 clients her second month. And our model was sell 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And, the most we thought someone would sell in a month's like 10. Okay. And her second month, she sold 36. So we took the model, threw it out the window, and that's what launched it. From there, fast forward, we did $100 million in the first 10 years in revenue.
Wow.
And my last year, it did about $25 million in revenue and was highly profitable. And we had 150 coaches worldwide. We were in 6 different countries. And our content that I was kind of the curator, leader. There was a team of us to put the content together, but that was kind of one of the areas I focused on. It got translated to, I think we were 3 different languages last time I checked, maybe 4.
Yeah.
And we had 20,000 people go through the one-on-one coaching program.
Wow.
So that grew so fast. It grew at 68% per year for 10 years in a row. Okay. That it got the attention of the global conglomerate. So Southwestern family of companies at the time was 30 different companies, all under one equity plan, one roof, if you will. And so the board of directors said, "Hey, we want you to be the CEO of the entire thing." So I was 36 at the time. So I was the youngest CEO at the oldest direct sales company in the country. And I said, sure. It was never really a goal of mine. I was having a blast running Southwestern Consulting, but I thought, okay, let's give this a go. And it was a much different world. So that's a lot of what my new book Capacity is about. Is what was it like going from entrepreneur to CEO and running 30 companies. I had 16 CFOs reporting to me, 30 presidents reporting to me. Right. And I was the only CEO in the whole family of companies. Yeah. And so it was different, and it was quite the learning experience, and it was fun. Got lots of results, and grew revenues, grew profits, solved a lot of problems. Had by the end of it, every company was profitable. Okay. And so that was the journey.
Now that is a fascinating journey, because I think what people are fascinated by is they want to grow something big like that, but they don't. Right? They don't know how. That's what they say. Like, I don't know how. How do we go out and have 300 coaches? How do we start the process? So taking that company from there, doing 100 million in 10 years, and then taking over, what when you were the CEO, when you got 30 people reporting to you,
Oh, 75 people
okay,
reporting to me.
75 people reporting to you,
Yeah.
30 presidents, right?
Yep.
What was the big learning there? Because I would think
Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
I would just think the focus, getting people focused toward a dominant aspiration, keeping them focused, dealing with egos, I'm sure, and personalities and all of those things that you would deal with as a CEO. Did you enjoy that?
I'm thankful
Yeah.
for the experience.
Yep.
And it was, I mean, I look back now and being 4 years of CEO of that much responsibility, develop skills, muscles
Yep.
that it would have taken a lifetime to develop. So it was being forged through the fire.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for all of that. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I mean, just the
Yeah.
fact that somebody trusted me enough to say, hey, even though you're young, we think you have what it takes. I mean, what a honor, what a blessing to just have that the nod, if you will,
Yeah.
that hey, you're the CEO now.
Yeah.
Um, it was very challenging.
I bet.
So I would say the difference between starting your own company from scratch and then dealing with those problems versus now all of a sudden you inherit 30 companies that you didn't start and you don't know where all the problems really came from, but you're still the person at the end of the day that's responsible for fixing them, feels a lot different. It's much easier for me emotionally to solve a problem that I feel responsible for because at the end of the day, I was a co-founder of the company and you know, the buck stops with you as the
Right.
leader. So in essence, it is your problem
Right.
versus some company that's been running for a while and then you're being asked to make it profitable and fix it and whatever you're doing.
Right.
And then you don't really know what was the root of that. So it's way more intense to get to the root of the cause and to fix it and to find true solutions where you're doing the people right
Yep.
internally and externally. So you have lots of team members. I mean, we had thousands of salespeople,
Right.
and we had hundreds of operations people, and each one of these had different dynamics
Yeah.
that were complex.
Yeah.
And when we had distribution centers internationally, we had people that were being recruited in one country and selling in a different country. So there were just so many complexities dealing with legislation. Like I've never had to go and talk with people on Capitol Hill, and
Right.
all of a sudden that was part of my job.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
one cool thing on what was fun about it was I got a phone call from the former CEO, and he said, "Hey, what's interesting about this job is you actually have to host the incentive trips for all the companies." And I said, what does that mean? And he said, it's about 5 to 7 incentive trips on average per year that you host. And I was like, really? He goes, it sounds cool, but it ends up being work. And he was exactly right. So the first year, you know, I think I hosted 7 incentive trips, and you know, I brought my wife with me, and I'd bring my daughter if it was family friendly.
Right.
And that was pretty cool. You know, part of the job was going to all these different countries, and you know, you'd have 30 salespeople, and you were kind of hosting and putting the event together and all that. But after about the third year, you start to be like, okay, because everybody wants to meet with you one-on-one. And an incentive trip really is where you can get the most quality time
Right.
with your top people.
Interesting.
So I found myself needing a vacation from the incentive trip
Yep.
after about the second, third year. So that was kind of a fun little anecdote of running what ended up being 20 companies by my fourth year that were profitable and
Right.
growing is kind of where we landed.
So would you say you used your core strength there and then develop these other secondary skills, right? Like I think, you know, when I was a basketball coach, I was in charge of my program, right?
Yep.
Then I became the athletic director.
Yep.
And then I was in charge of all the coaches.
Yeah.
And it was literally like babysitting 50 egomaniacs. And these two couldn't get along with these two. And the baseball coach hated the football coach. And the cheerleaders needed the gym, but the band needed the gym at the same time. And the soccer, when it rained, needed to come inside. And it was literally like babysitting. It was not a lot of fun for me, because it's like everybody thinks they're the best, and I get it. But, I can only imagine doing that for 30 different companies, right? And you're working these diplomacy skills, and you're trying to move people from A to B. And
it was, I don't think you can be a CEO of a global conglomerate without developing some political skills.
yes,
And that was, at the consulting business, coaching business, we had a group of senior partners, and there was a lot of diplomacy. We did want, most of what we wanted was everybody to have a unanimous agreement on big moves that we were doing.
right,
But from time to time, it wasn't unanimous, inevitably, if you got, a group of people trying to all
Yeah.
agree on something.
yeah,
But that was heightened as CEO of many companies. The good news is the leaders there were amazing.
yeah,
I was working with highly talented, highly
Okay.
skilled, competent leaders, and I still to today respect all of them, and I learned a ton from them.
sure,
Kind of like, as you know, being the coach, really, you're the one that learns
Right.
the most
right,
after coaching high level people for
Right.
a certain amount of time.
that's right,
So just being able to just be there with them. I'm a hands-on in the trenches type of guy. So I would try to go physically. I went on sales calls on every single company that I was part of. Like, I physically would go and talk to the customers and work with the top salespeople,
Okay.
learn what they were doing. So it was just an honor to have that opportunity, and then just play a role when was needed. So
yeah,
a lot of it was just, hey, keep doing what you're doing. And there might be this one thing, or here's a strategic partnership, or
right,
hey, what I just saw in the field, what if we weren't doing this? But it wasn't like, let me show you how to run your company.
right.
I don't think I ever did that. I didn't.
But there was a lot of acquisitions,
There was lots of
and so
acquisitions.
you learned that game, the acquisition game.
And we were buying and selling.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you learned the
And
game.
starting. We're buying, selling, starting.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's 3 core skills that you grabbed during that period.
Yep.
No raising of capital during that period, though. All just privately held. going
Yeah,
out.
privately held. We have private equity
Okay.
that we were using, and
Okay.
learned a lot about
So-
those dynamics.
So these are all because I always think these skills are kind of getting you ready for a seat at a bigger table.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's how life and God
And
works.
that's a good
Yeah.
way. Okay, so let's fast forward to, at some point, season changes, and it's like I'm moving out into the entrepreneur world,
Yeah.
and you start all things new ventures.
Yep.
That comes to you one day. It's like, what I really want to do is X.
So going back to what you mentioned at the very beginning, actually, I didn't start with that.
Okay.
So after 20 years, I was 20 years old when I started there.
Wow.
So then I was in college still. And so I hadn't known anything else outside of that little small ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so I needed some decompression. And it was actually my wife's idea. When she heard I was leaving, she literally celebrated. She was like,
Yeah.
freedom. And
Yeah.
she started dancing. And I was like, I wasn't expecting you to respond that way. And then the first day after all that kind of went down, she said, we should just buy an RV and hit the road. And I was like, that is a great idea. And so then I said, let's just go look at RVs. So we went to go look at RVs. And of course, we bought one that day.
Yep.
Literally pulled out of the parking lot with the RV
Wow.
that day.
Okay.
And we were on the road within about 2 or 3 months, and put the house up to rent, and hit the road, and we were gone for almost 9 months. And we drove from Nashville to Cabo, Mexico, from Cabo, Mexico to Spokane, Washington, from Spokane, Washington to Skinny Atlas, New York, from Skinny Atlas, New York back to Nashville with 42 stops in between.
Wow. And nobody, wanted to strangle each other along the way?
You know, so my daughter, we pulled our daughter out of school. She was in 5th grade at the time, and we did what's called road schooling, or my wife calls it unschooling.
Okay.
I was the math teacher. She was doing English and reading. And my daughter had a tough time for about the first 3 weeks. And it wasn't until dozens of people affirmed, going back to the affirmation, so many people would tell her, this is such a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is so cool. Your parents are doing this. At first, she was like, I'm missing out on so much with my friends.
Right.
And then after about the, I don't know, 20th person that said, this is awesome that you're doing it, she started being like, maybe this is awesome.
Yeah.
And she kind of got on board with it. And then by the end, it was the best thing we ever did. Quick, interesting story of also how God works. My brakes caught on fire with the Jeep being pulled behind the RV, and we got stuck in a blizzard in the middle of Montana.
Oh.
And literally couldn't go anywhere. And at the time I was pissed because I had a goal to snow ski I wanted to ski 20 times.
Okay.
And we had skied 19 days. And I had already planned to do a ski day with a friend up in Big Sky. And basically my brakes catching on fire made it where I couldn't go hit my goal of skiing 20 times that year. So my initial response was all frustrated, and I'm stuck here in the middle of nowhere. So what we ended up doing is we had Starlink, the Elon Musk satellite that you can have internet anywhere you go, which, by the way, is amazing. Wow. I mean, it's one of the coolest things ever. We were in the middle of the desert of Mexico, and we had perfect internet. But we were in the middle of Montana at this time in a blizzard, and we threw up the Starlink and we turned on the TV. And this is when a program called The Chosen had came out.
Yep.
And we had nothing else to do, so we watched it as a family. And I think it changed our family.
Wow.
I mean, I cried probably every episode.
Yep.
My daughter, we went to church and we learned about the Bible, but man, The Chosen for a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, it was some big topics that you can understand by watching. It was so well done. The acting's so good. Anybody that hasn't seen The Chosen, go to the Angel Network and watch it, especially with your kids, with your family. It was a game changer. So we binge watched The Chosen sitting there in a blizzard in the middle of Montana. And if it wasn't for my brakes catching on fire, and if it wasn't for us not going skiing, we probably wouldn't have done that. And so that was kind of a highlight for me, was actually what I thought was a bad thing that happened ended up being one of the best things that happened.
So you take this, I call it retreat to attack, this sabbatical, right? You take this year-long sabbatical.
Yep.
At some point, you have a revelation and you're like, this is what I want to do.
Oh, yes. So I'm started getting phone calls. So as soon as LinkedIn got updated that I'm no longer the CEO at Southwestern, the phone started ringing. People started recruiting me. And, a lot of it was, hey, how would you like to run? A lot of owners were calling saying, would you like to be CEO? And a lot of it was stuff I'd already done before, or things I knew a lot about, but it was heavy on just different aspects. I guess I don't need to get in the details, but it came from me truly exploring them. I went and would meet with people. Like I would route my RV to go see what they were talking about.
Okay.
And I would see it and I'd get to the end of it and I'd go, I don't know if that's what I want to do. Like, it was just saying no. So I said no to several things, many things. And by the end of saying no to about the 5th or 6th pretty decent opportunity, I just kind of went, what is it I do want to do?
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, I love the strategy. I love the putting together the process, putting together the people, putting together the systems, increasing their capacity to grow. But I did not want to be the CEO.
Right.
And I said, I'll tell you what, I won't be the CEO, but I'll be the right hand to the CEO.
Okay.
I'll give you the playbook. I'll give you the people.
Yeah.
I'll help you raise the money.
Okay.
I'll put the contract together for you.
Right.
But you're going to do it.
Right.
And everybody started saying yes.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this could be something here. And so I have this tattoo. He makes all things new.
Yep.
my wife has the same tattoo, and her tattoo's right here. And it was when I reproposed to my wife at our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Okay.
And we full on did a new wedding. Like, we got remarried.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
yeah, it was awesome. And when I reproposed, we went and got matching tattoos at the Miami tattoo shop in Miami.
Okay.
And so this has always had a lot of meaning to me and to us. And
Yeah.
when I was trying to think of a company name, I just thought All Things New Ventures. And so you fast forward to today, and all the folks I work with, I'm an equity partner,
Yep.
a minority equity partner.
Yep.
Usually it's with the basis of wherever I start to the growth.
Okay.
And we're experiencing some amazing
Yeah.
growth with all the companies I'm working with.
Yeah. And I guess it's a form of what I call kind of venture coaching. I call it venture coaching, where you come into a situation, you add a skill set, they get an increase,
Yep.
and you participate in the upside of that increase.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's a great way
And
to put it. Yeah.
and I think you probably saw this as a CEO, is that there's a lot of really skilled people, but they're still missing a component. It's like they're a genius in this area, but not that area, right? Like all the venture coaching deals I do, it's like, this is a little genius, but the little genius can do this, but they can't market and sell.
Yep.
Or they do this.
Yep.
And I guess that's why in Silicon Valley, so many people will not invest in a company unless there's co-founders.
That's
right.
right.
Because one is good and one's good at this, one's good at that.
Yeah.
And that, but
They
now
say the magic number is actually 3.
3.
Yeah.
See, now you're using your skill set and you're going into various companies really to use all of this past to help get increase.
Yep.
And you're rewarded on the upside of that. Does that it never scares a guy like me, because I know we're going to get increase.
That's right.
I'm sure you're the same way, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's probably a different compensation model.
It is.
Than you had.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of upside.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment of what, I mean, when I first started, if I went back 20 years, I was a straight commission sales guy.
Right.
Like, that's where I started.
Right.
So it is kind of a weird dynamic to go back to. I mean, it's not that much of a it's not straight commission, but it is a bit of the unknown.
Yeah.
And you have to embrace the unknown to accomplish anything of substance. And so for me, the confidence really comes from track record. I mean, this is not my first rodeo.
Right.
This is even before doing the All Things New Ventures. There were 6 companies that I helped launch and start, and it's all, the fundamentals are there. And so my new book, Capacity, it's the Entrepreneur's Field Guide, how to go from entrepreneur to CEO.
Right.
And there's 5 pillars in the book.
Okay.
So pillar number 1 is executive strategy.
Okay.
Most people don't even know what that is.
Right.
They don't have one. And you can look at a stagnant company that's kind of staying the same over 5 to 10 years. And I'd say a big part of that is the lack of an executive strategy, because that typically is what drives the growth. Second pillar is business development strategy. What is somebody's business development strategy? Almost every company I'm working with, they had products and they had people and they had passion and they were working their butts off, but there wasn't a business development strategy on how to grow the business, how to grow the product lines, how to streamline, how to recruit people that are going to go sell more, or to take existing people and streamline their positions where they're being more productive. And so business development is a huge part of it. Then third is the marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And marketing is kind of an interesting word. It's so broad. It's like saying sports. Like, I love sports. It's like, great. What sports do you like to play? You know, marketing is kind of like that, where people say, oh, I'm a marketer. It's like, what kind of marketer? Right. So a lot of times entrepreneurs, they are the marketing person.
Right.
You know, the leader is the brand, whether they like it or not.
Right.
So you look at the leader of a company, and that's the brand. So sometimes that's awesome. And you do a great job of this, Coach, where you wear the brand, you are the brand, and it really personifies what it's all about.
Right.
Other companies, you look at the leader and it's like they're trying to be something different than what the leader presents, and they struggle.
Right.
And they wonder, why are we stagnant? Why aren't people just
Mhm.
coming? And why don't people want to work with us? And it's like, well, you start at the top. And I think, Steve Jobs did a great job of this. Like Steve Jobs personified the brand for Apple. You name all the, Elon Musk with Tesla. The best leaders today are personifying the brand. They're out there, they're speaking, they're doing podcasts, they're interviewing, they are the brand. So when you start with the brand with marketing and you start with the leader being the brand, then you can distill from that with your marketing strategy, is everything else on brand. So if the leader's on brand, then you can go to your website, your sales materials, your social media. If you're doing advertising, what kind of advertising are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the brand drives all of that, and the leader personifies the brand. So I could go on and on, but that's pillar number 3.
Yep.
Pillar number 4 is the legal strategy.
Okay.
And legal is an interesting department. A lot of people go, "Oh yeah, we have a lawyer that we pay $500 an hour to,
Yeah.
and we call them when we need them."
Yeah.
And it's like, great, congratulations, you have a lawyer that you know.
Right.
What's your legal strategy?
Right.
And they go, what's that?
Yeah.
So the legal strategy is really, for me, the word that I just think of every day with every equity partner I have is, how do I increase the value of this business?
Okay.
So sometimes value is driven in different ways other than increasing revenue and increasing profits. You can add multiples to the value of your company based on how well you write your contracts.
Yep.
You can increase the value of your company based on you having a patent portfolio strategy. You can increase the value of your company through mergers and acquisitions and doing legal strategies where you're thinking through how to structure something, but your lawyers are helping you with that.
Yeah.
And then that bridges to the last pillar, which is the financial strategy.
Yeah.
So the financial strategy, again, ask most entrepreneurs, what is your financial strategy? And they go, make more money. There's not one. So this is thinking of first off, getting your finances in such an order where you have gap financing. Do you have a CPA that's helping you as your CFO? Do you have a CFO? So building out the finance team. Again, most people, it's like their sister, their wife, their friend, their somebody they know who knows how to use Excel. 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs I find, that's who's doing their books.
Yeah.
It's somebody, it's like they don't want to do it. And so they find someone who's willing to do it. And then that's boom, there's your CFO. Versus let's get someone who's properly trained with an accounting degree. CPAs are amazing. If you find someone with a CPA, they will do things to your business that will grow the value of your company. And they're expensive, they're hard to find, yes, and they're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So we go through all of that. Then once you get the right finance team together, you then have them do the things that drive growth, which is going from a cash basis to GAAP accounting.
Okay.
Look at a 13-week rolling finance tool, which is standard in most Fortune 100 companies. Then start thinking through, do we have an equity plan? What are all the assets that we have here that we're not using from a financial strategy standpoint to grow the company? So do you have a line of credit with a bank? Do you have the ability to create an equity plan and recruit people or acquire companies through equity? Do you have the ability to do interesting financial compensation plans that aren't just a salary? So there's all kinds of things you can do with commissions and rev shares and modeling comp that people just don't even think of.
Yeah.
But once you start doing it, it grows the business. You recruit higher quality people People kind of come out of the cornfields once they hear, oh, wow,
Right.
this is different.
Right.
You're doing something I'm passionate about, and I can make the kind of money I want, but you still might be a small company striving to be a big company, but through this financial strategy is how you get there.
Yeah. I think we found your genius there at the. I think we kept working away at it, and then I think we got it there. Well, I actually really love this, Dustin, because I see so many businesses, and what I wrote down, I've taken a lot of notes here, is bringing attention to stagnation. Because companies that I see stagnate, there's so many more that have stagnated. Right. And then they're like, what do we do? Do we hire this guy or that girl? Or it's like, well, the answers to those questions, I wrote 5 reasons for stagnation, which actually build your capacity, right?
That's right.
This is really how you build capacity. And it just, these are things that most companies don't even think to do.
That's right.
And maybe they don't think because they're, I use the word ignorant, not like in a bad term, but they just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't even know that some of these things are available. So
they're in the weeds, slaying the dragon, and they work harder.
They think working harder will get it, when it's really not working harder, it's working differently.
Yeah.
It's not trying harder, it's trying differently.
That's right.
All right, so so it's good. So when is the book coming out? Capacity, because I think it's going to be a great book.
So it's my agent is literally in New York pitching it.
Okay, good.
And so it's
good for
I'm
you.
going down that road.
Good for you. Yeah.
And she's excited about it and thinks it's going to happen.
Well, I think you've got a proven track record, and I think the book really tackles a real problem, right, that people need. There's so many small businesses that just, man, they stay at the same place, like a set point. For years.
Now, people did want to get on the list of when it is ready. DustinHillis.com. There's a button. Put your email in there, and you'll know as soon as it's ready to go.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I think it's going to be a great book. I think it solves a real problem, and I think it's actually perfect for what I look at alignment, right, between your skill set and the book.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. It really took me about 18 books, to be honest with you, before I found that when I wrote Flip the Switch. It's like Pray Drive. That's who I am.
It
took me a while to keep working at it. It's like, that's good. Now let's move into some of the companies you're involved with today.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of finish there today. And so let's start with the one you and I are both associated with.
Yep.
Which is HITSE, right?
Yep.
Healthcare Integrated
Technology.
That's right.
Yep.
And what does the company do?
Yeah. So it's a publicly traded stock.
Yep.
So for those of everybody listening, you can just go to the stock ticker and type in HITC.
Yep.
HITC is our short version of it. Healthcare Integrated Technologies.
Yep.
It's a medical AI company that is revolutionizing the way that we keep people safe and save money for the healthcare industry.
Yep.
We're starting with elder care, and we have 3 core products that, number one, helps to save lives. So there's, for people with dementia, my grandmother being one, she's in a facility just the other day and told my dad, hey, I'm just going to leave and I'm going to go get some sun.
Right.
And he's like, oh, that would not be good. And he walks out and there was nothing stopping her from doing that.
Yeah.
She could just walk right out the door.
Right.
And then the other day, actually, we unfortunately got a report. Another very large, well-known facility had somebody do that and they died. And they ended up having to shut that facility down temporarily until they fixed it. Well, we have the fix to that.
Okay. Not
Not only do we have the fix to that, we have the patent for the fix to that.
Good.
Through AI camera technology.
Nice.
So then another one is the text to register. And so that's a core product when you're coming in and out of the facility, texting your name and boom, it knows everywhere you've been to help with doing investigations. And so that's a big thing within the elder care medical world, and we in 1 second can push a button and tell you everything that has happened with what you need for an investigation. So
Okay.
anybody that's in the industry knows that's a huge thing, and we have the leading product for that.
Okay.
We're in 24 facilities right now.
Okay.
It's being done in all 24 of them within Signature Health Care Systems.
Okay.
And it is they're giving us rave reviews
Okay.
right now. So, and then the other one is for helping with staffing and with the staff to just do time and attendance, logging in, logging out. So that way you don't have to do the paper system
Right.
or the cell phone system, and they can leave their phone and go out on a break.
Right.
And you don't really know how much time is being spent.
Yeah.
We have one facility that in the first month that this program was installed, saved $30,000
Wow.
in the first month,
Wow.
just 1 month. And then it saves thousands and thousands every month after that.
Right.
What's interesting, as soon as the employees know that this is working, that cuts the waste, if you will, down significantly.
Yeah.
And so we also have several other products. We have a fall detection patent
Yep.
where we will have hallways with our technology, our cameras in each room.
Okay.
And without wearing lanyards, without wearing bracelets, just the AI will detect if they are falling or not,
Okay.
and send out text message alerts to the doctors, to the family members. You can talk to them, make sure they're okay over the camera, all that
Okay.
good stuff. It's exciting.
It really is exciting. And, my mother was an administrator of a long-term healthcare facility. My mom was a nurse her whole life and worked in everything from emergency rooms at Vanderbilt to, and ended up being like running a nursing home, right? And now she's in elder care, placing people in homes, and she understands the relationship between what the family needs, what the patient needs, what the doctors know, and that's what makes her good at what she does. And I just said, "What do you think about this?" And she said, "This is where this has got to go, right? It's too much human error.
Yeah.
There's too many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
There's too much of these problems that are happening." So, when I first told her about it, and that's what she did was run these facilities, she's like, "Oh yeah, I definitely see how that's where it's got to move to this place."
That's right.
And she said, "Let me give an example. Just yesterday, a woman and one of the ones she was associated with fell down, and I don't think she died, but there was a lawsuit coming
Yeah.
because it took them too long to get to her."
Well, they say that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Once you fall, even psychologically,
Yep.
they start being more cautious,
Right.
which also affects their health.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when they do fall and they get hurt, then the other series of events end up happening. And
Right.
yeah, so it is truly life-saving technology.
Interesting.
And we have 2 patents and 13 patents pending.
Okay.
So the patent portfolio by itself is significant. And we have a go-to-market strategy that is world-class. And we have 3 people last week that signed up for our services.
Yep.
One of the largest facilities in the country we're meeting with hopefully this week, if not next week.
Yep.
And it's going to take off like a rocket ship.
Now, you and I first started this conversation by talking about the difference between privately held companies and publicly traded companies, right?
That's right.
Because this is a company that person out there watching this can invest in this today.
Yeah.
Right. Even when, Scott, the CEO, was
Yep.
here and you guys were here at the Greatness Factory, people were investing in the stock because they saw the potential for it to really do something big. So explain a little bit about, for the person out there who's maybe never been in the publicly traded arena,
Yeah.
explain the difference, because you were in a privately held company for 20 years.
Yep.
I've been in privately held companies my whole life.
Mhm.
And when you guys sat down and we talked about this, I go, now this is interesting. It's like I didn't even know this world existed. I knew it existed, but I didn't know it existed. And then I always look at a company, just probably like you do, the bones of the company, the team,
Yep.
the patented technology, the structure. Does it solve a real problem in the world that people would pay for? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I look at it as a business, and if that business can really be successful, and I shared it with a person, and here was his exact words. A very sophisticated investor said to me, the business, being in a business that helps save people's lives is always a good business to be in.
Mm,
When he said that, I go, that's right.
I love that.
Outside of just the opportunity,
Yeah.
he said a business that is in the business of saving people's lives is always a good business to be in.
That's
And
right.
I thought, boom, that's good.
That's
So
right.
tell us a little bit about that. The publicly traded companies versus privately, and how that works. Because I didn't even really understand until we sat down and talked about those things.
Yeah, and actually that's how I met Scott, was
Yeah.
I wanted to learn this.
Yes.
So dealing with these companies and they're, from time to time you get phone calls from private equity and venture capital guys that are wanting to, see about investing and getting involved somehow. And I thought, man, I could do what these guys do. And
Right.
so I signed up for a course. I went down to Florida and attended an event to learn how to launch a fund.
Mm.
And while I was there, I ended up signing up for their coaching program. And after I signed up, I'm walking through the halls and I run into this guy named Scott Boroff. And we hit it off immediately. When I asked him what he did, he said, I have a healthcare AI company and raise capital, and it's a publicly traded company, and we buy companies and merge them into our publicly traded portfolio.
Yep.
And he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I have a sweat equity venture company that has companies looking for people to buy them. And I'm learning how to put equity structure or raise capital to end up helping them have an exit." And he goes, "Well, would you like to go to dinner?" So
Nice.
over the course of dinner, what he had spent 30 years doing, I was trying to learn how to do. And it would have taken me a decade to learn it, if not 30 years or more. And then for him, what he really was looking for, his favorite book is Who, Not How.
Who, not how.
And he talks about it all the time.
Yep.
And by the end of the dinner, he looked at me and he goes, "You're my who."
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He goes, "What you have done for the last 20 years, I've never done, which is organically grow revenues of a business from
Right.
a flat rock, where you're just hiring salespeople, training on
Mm.
growing a business organically." He goes, "I've been a Wall Street guy my whole life." He raised over $1 billion on Wall Street. Then he became CEO of a publicly traded company. He took it from 10 cents to almost $9.
Yep.
And now he's doing it again. And so he's just said, "Hey, how would you like for all these different companies, starting with Hitsy, put a business development plan together, the 5 pillars, do all of your 5 pillars to Hitsy, and help me raise capital." So he was raising $4 million to do these acquisitions. And as we buy these companies, do the 5 pillars to every company we acquire.
Yeah.
And I go, "That's my dream job."
Nice.
And so
Yeah.
now I'm partners with him,
Yep.
functioning as his right hand.
Yep.
My title is Chief Strategy Officer.
Yep.
And it's cool because the other companies I'm partnered with,
Yep.
ultimately, when the time is right,
Right.
we have an option
Yep.
that I'm directly involved in. If and when they ever want to do an exit or have a cash event of any sort.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I had one of the top business brokers in that's involved in buying and selling businesses. And one of the things I took away from him was he said, to build real wealth, there has to be a liquidity event.
That's right.
Okay. And think about how many people have never had a liquidity event.
Most
of my wealth was built when I first started making money, taking money from the coaching business, buying real estate, sitting on the real estate, it appreciating in value, and I'd take 100,000, and then I'd wake up 3 years later with 400,000.
Yeah.
And then I would
Yep.
do it again. And I never thought about it until he said that. The way you build real wealth is through liquidity events.
That's right.
And I think, when you build a company like mine, you were in the coaching business, and it's like, okay, how do we have a liquidity event in a coaching business that's primarily based on the key man? Right? And
Yeah.
but when we got in and started talking about these things, I was fascinated by how this worked. But at the end of the day, when I look at Hitsy, if with objective eyes coming into it, I look at all the things you mentioned. Patented technology, right?
Yep.
Solves a real problem.
Yep.
This is where the world is going. And protect the patients and save the facilities money.
Yeah.
Right. And when I look at all that, I go, that's a winner.
Yeah.
That's just the way I look at it. Right.
Yep.
Whether I met you that day and you showed it to me, or I go, okay. And then we brought in a group of sophisticated investors, right? One of the original founders of Orange Theory, some of these other people, and they looked at it and said the same thing. It's like,
That's right.
This is got some wheels on it.
So right now the stock's trading at 10 cents a share, roughly. It's like 9 cents to 12 cents.
Right.
and it's called a fully audited pink sheet
Yep.
company. So I called my financial advisor and was talking to him about it. And he said, most of these don't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. And he said, it's just because most of the leadership, when people get into this world, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yep.
It's very, the dynamics, it's very expensive. So just to get a publicly traded company, you have to have so many lawyers, so many accountants, so many boxes that you check. You're in at $500,000
Right.
just to get into to Pink Sheet.
Right.
Then to get it up to the what's called an up list is like a whole nother set of skills that Scott has,
Right.
but most people don't have. And
Right.
he's done it before, he's doing it again.
Mhm.
So that's why, if you watch TV shows like the Shark Tank,
Right.
they always are really, they're looking at the opportunity, they're looking at the idea, but really they're looking at that entrepreneur.
Right.
And they're going, do you have what it takes to grow this business?
Yep.
Is what Mark Cuban and all those
Yep.
guys look at. And so I do the same thing when I'm thinking about partnering with anybody is, does the leader have what it takes to grow the business? Is this the kind of leader I would want to work with? And Scott checked all those boxes for me.
Right.
He's literally taken a stock from Pink Sheet. He rang the bell at NASDAQ. He rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants to do again. He is doing it.
Right.
And to be along that ride with him and helping create those organic revenue streams and building the team around his capital raising abilities is just so fun.
Right. And I saw the same thing. And I guess in full public disclosure for people watching this, I am on the board of directors.
Yep. You're the most recent board member.
Most recent board member of the company. And obviously I wouldn't have accepted that and joined that if I didn't think it was going to do something. And the people, I just look at everything like I look at every business and go, okay, like I said earlier, technology problem that we're solving, people, all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Excited for you to be on the board
Yep.
and be partners in that fashion together.
Yep.
And it's going to be a fun journey.
Well, I feel like we could go for hours and hours and hours because, you got such a wide, I'm taking 4 or 5 pages of notes here and you triggered so many things. You're just you got a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills, and I definitely see how you've done. Of course, I knew that when I met with you the first time, but I love, out of everything you said today, man, I think it all ties home with this book capacity. I really do. And I think I love extracting people's talents and skills and listening. And these 5 things, what's interesting is nobody's talking about these. And why nobody's talking about these, I don't know, because how many small businesses stagnate?
That's right.
And it is such a frustrating, miserable process to know that you have so much more, but you just can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And you go, I'm smarter than this. I know I'm smarter than this. I know I'm smarter than this. Like, why am I stuck here? So I really think the book capacity is going to be a game changer for people. And I think you found your home for your skills. So good for you, man.
Well, thank you. And I'm thankful for everybody that's contributed to those skills along the way. And, most importantly, just God being able to have the connection with the divine. I think I would feel remiss to not cover just as I've gone through a journey of finding those skills, finding my core competency, finding my passion. What's interesting about God is he's always there and he's always been there.
Right.
But it's us bumbling humans that have to kind of work through our own crap to just connect to what's right there before you.
Yep.
And for anybody that's out there that it feels like this is just a little bit of a mystery, but has like that little tug at their heart going, I want to know more.
Yep.
It literally starts with asking.
That's right.
And it was like, I was frustrated driving down the road. I was really pissed off at life.
Yeah.
And I just said, God, what do you have in store for me?
Yeah.
And that opened up everything else.
Yeah.
And so, the Bible has all the info you need. I think if there's a book, and you make mistakes. And so, Jesus was the example of grace.
Yeah.
And I think until you experience grace, it's hard to understand grace.
Right.
And so, knowing how to have grace, knowing how to live in grace, it's not about religion.
Right.
And so many people get caught in people, because people are going to screw up. Every pastor I've ever worked with,
Yep.
there's one thing they all have in common: they're
Yeah,
human.
that's right.
And people attach, their belief
Mhm.
into a human, and a human will let you down.
Right.
And so I just wanted to share, um, if you have that desire and you
Yeah.
want to increase your belief, increase your faith, start with a question to God, and the answers will come.
Yeah.
And keep pursuing that, and then you'll find so many awesome things on the other side of that, and to live in grace and not judgment.
Yeah.
And it'll change your life.
Yep. Seek and you will find, won't you? I
Yep.
love it. Man, this has been a lot of fun. You've inspired me to do a lot of things. Maybe once take a 1-year sabbatical.
I got an RV for sale.
No, I can get my wife on board with this one. But hey, I'll tell her to call you guys and y'all can talk about it. But I do think there's a place for space and creating margin in life, and having some space to think about your future and your hopes and your goals and your dreams and what you really want to do with life. And I actually believe, that year was a good space for you, right?
Yeah.
To really come home to your skill set. So you guys have been listening to Person of Expansion. It's under America's Coach. Really, when I wrote the book Person of Interest, I said, man, people of interest are people of expansion. They got high prey drive. They're really very talented, very skilled. Dustin Hillis, very skilled person. Thank you for joining me today here at the Greatness Factory, and I look forward to bigger and better futures with you, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right.